Welcome back to Enterprise Season 3 Xindi arc. We skipped over 3 episodes, the gist of which being 2 things. That the spheres were believed to have been made for the purpose of creating this mess of anomalies by a group that some locals worship called the Makers, that they're supposed to be creating some kind of paradise. And that thanks to some shenanigans inspired by the James Garner movie 36 Hours, they tricked Degra, the weapon designer, into giving away the weapon is at Azadi Prime, which is a 3-week journey. So we got a bit of time to kill on this trip. Tucker decides to spend it with one of the Makos, Cole, by doing some Vulcan neuropressure on her. They take the time to discuss Major Hayes and Lieutenant Reed, that regimentality they both have, which seems to be the source of some of their friction, in contrast to people prepared to make their own lube. After the titles, Archer has some good news for Reed. Seems that Hayes thinks that the security team and the senior officers could benefit from training drills under the Makos, and Archer agrees. Archer himself won't be attending, of course, as his main form of combat is letting the opponent tire themselves out beating the shit out of him. Reed doesn't like the idea, but he doesn't have a reason why using newer techniques with more advanced equipment would be bad. Except for, well, have they gotten into fights with aliens? Which the answer is, yeah, actually they have several times on this mission already. So Reed has to slink off to make this so. Poor bastard. Meanwhile, Phlox is asked to Paul in to discuss Vulcan neuropressure. Seems that it's giving Cole a headache, although obviously not one of the ones that classically prevents boning. She agrees doing neuropressure wrong could be responsible for that, so she says she'll talk to Tucker about not doing it anymore.
If you find time, perhaps you could schedule a neuropressure session with Corporal Cole. Maybe undo some of Commander Tucker's work.
2 chicks doing it! Hooah! In the B plot, no, the neuropressure is not the A plot, we just haven't gotten to one yet. Reed is being intentionally difficult over scheduling with Hayes, as a reminder of who's in charge and why going behind his back straight to Archer was a dick move. I mean, yeah, Reed would have shot it down, but it's the principle of the matter, the chain of command. Although Archer went along with it, so the chain of command clearly isn't very important on this ship. Well, 10 minutes in, they finally stumble across the A plot, a gravimetric disturbance. Oh man, there's not a hanky big enough to take care of that booger. It's a convergence of anomalies, 700 million kilometers in diameter. Using our solar system as a reference, that's a sphere that would extend to around the asteroid belt. But weird thing, there's something in there. Something with life signs aboard it. Archer wants Reed to get it with the grappler. Oh, still think you don't need that weapons training, Reed? He does get it on the second try, but the snot is expanding and starts to encompass the ship, so things start malfunctioning and there's ammonium sulfide in the air. Not a good combination when something explosive is in the vicinity of sparks. Tucker has to directly use the engines to pull them out before they have a very bad day. And speaking of bad day, here's someone having one. Yeah, this guy needs an entire drum of moisturizer. When he comes to, he's in a lot of pain and infuriated rather than grateful for this rescue, and wants to go back in his pod. Yeah, that's a no for right now, until we can sort out a way to get around this big mess. And we're going to need to hurry on that, because it's expanding. It's already engulfed an inhabited world and killed everyone on it. So I wouldn't invest in any real estate there. In the B-plot, Hayes shows some of their sparring techniques on one of the Makos to begin training the Enterprise senior officers in their techniques. So they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight. But T'Pol gets distracted because Tucker is practicing with Cole, and they're both clearly liking that. So, I present to you first the insult, then the injury. On the whole, I think I'd prefer Cole grabbing my ass. But when Mayweather gets slammed into the deck hard enough to bleed, Reed calls the session done, stopping just short of whipping out his dick and pissing in a circle to make a point. Lest you think I'm siding against Reed, Hayes is also a bit myopic in this story. One thing I've observed is that when you're in charge of something, you become tempted to see everything through its lens. So he's training as if they're going onto the field of battle, instead of being primarily responsible for very vital roles that are far from it. Mayweather's time could be better spent learning how to navigate them through the Here There Be Dragons area of space safely, instead of needing to go get medical treatment. I'm not saying they don't need any training, but there's an upper limit on practicality here when they also need to run battle and damage control drills that are far more likely going to be issues for them to deal with instead of facing an invader while they're unarmed and the invader is unarmed. Not that it's impossible, don't get me wrong, it's just that when I think of necessary skills for the person keeping the engine running, Kung Fu mastery doesn't leap immediately to mind. In the C-plot, working on the probe, T'Pol takes a moment to tell Trip he needs to stop the sessions before he causes nerve damage. But the underlying sense of simmering jealousy is apparent, especially when she says that her being his subordinate makes this inappropriate, when Tucker and Cole are not in the same organization. But the green-eyed monster will have to wait. T'Pol has found out that the hull of the pod is made of the same alloy that the spheres are, meaning this isn't some kind of escape pod from that doomed planet. It sounds like the myth of that one species might be partially true, that these makers are making a paradise, but not for the faithful, for themselves. That pod was equipped to take biometric readings of the occupant. See how he was doing, probably trying to see how well he could survive and thrive in that environment. Oh, and speaking of biology...
Please sit down. Remove your jacket.
While that's going on, Cole reveals that the reason she and Trip started spending time together was because of their background. They both came from towns in Florida that were near to each other, both towns that were destroyed by the Xindi. But she certainly has a likening for her fellow Floridian that goes a little too far for T'Pol's liking, leading to a distressing prod during this session. Well, at least Cole isn't holding a rifle right now. Anyway, moving on. Cole has a rifle right now. It's time for target practice, see, and to serve as a reminder that Reed is not Billy the Kid, he's the first one up for this session.
4 targets in 10 seconds. Not bad for a first go.
Oh, Hayes enjoyed that. He'd pour this moment over ice cream if he could. Reed grumbles about it at dinner with Tucker, who is enjoying his misery as well.
He's determined to take over the security of this ship,
That is paranoia bordering on silliness, my friend. You are a few steps away from becoming Archer. So Reed decides to play a reverse Uno on this. He brings up Cole and that Vulcan neuropressure. He makes the point that if the two of them are just friends, why would they do something so physically intimate together? In fact, it sounds like Trip's found himself in the middle of a sexy love triangle. Well, Trip insists there's nothing sensual about Vulcan neuropressure.
In that case, I'm a nasty little pain.
Just drop it.
Yep, he may be struggling with Hayes, but Reed knows all the judo throws and finishing moves. Now that we've tossed the B and C plots together, on to plot A. Archer makes the alien talk by holding back on his pain medication. At least he's not beating it out of him this time. And the alien admits he comes from a transdimensional realm, claiming to be a prisoner who is being used in a scientific experiment and needs to be put back. He's not done cooking yet. Well, I'm afraid that isn't happening because we've got a date with Azadi Prime and we cannot afford to be late. Next time, try not to let yourself be sent into the wrong universe. Back to the C plot, where Trip and T'Pol are neuropressuring each other, and he starts speculating about T'Pol's jealousy.
You're implying that I'm attracted to you.
That kind of goes along with the assumption, doesn't it?
Logical progression. He's staying in the game, T'Pol. So she takes a page from Reed, and now she reverse Uno's Trip, says that he's definitely attracted to her.
I don't remember that conversation.
It wasn't you, it was your clone.
Boy, if we had a nickel for every time a woman used the old "it was your clone" thing on us, huh, guys?
What just happened here? Did we... Are we...
Well, that sorts that out then. Now all we need is for Reed and Hayes to do that, and our problems will be solved. Getting back to the alien, he asks about where Phlox and the humans come from, and knowing that Earth is a planet that the Xindi fear very much, in fact so much they want to destroy it, Phlox naturally figures, well, this isn't a Xindi. There'd be no reason for them to be afraid. Why not tell them it's Earth? Ugh, you are such a boob, Phlox. Now that the alien is capable of walking through walls, we will head back to the B-plot. Reed is practicing his forms, and Hayes naturally takes him up on a chance to spar. They take turns being condescending pricks to each other, until Hayes puts Reed down on the deck, which is admittedly what you'd expect. Reed's got a lot of other things that he's got to be highly skilled at, of which beating the shit out of people with his bare hands is somewhere in the middle. Not the least important, certainly, but definitely not top 5. Reed naturally handles this like a professional.
Hayes!
Well, this is interrupted on account of the problem. Meanwhile, some crewman somewhere is on her last nerve. All right, get it together, okay? They're just anomalies here. Stop being childish. There is no such thing as ghosts, especially on a spaceship. They track the alien to engineering, but their weapons pass right through him. In an unintentionally hilarious moment, Tucker is soon face to face with the alien and immediately drops into a fighting stance per all of his training. The unlikely day when he would be unarmed, facing another unarmed intruder, ready to throw down, except the intruder has the power of vision. So Reed shows up to find Tucker out cold on the floor while the alien is trying to destroy the warp core. So he and Hayes work together to tech up a solution that blasts the alien back to solid form and out cold. And speaking of frickin' cold, when Tucker tries to have a serious discussion about what happened between the two of them, T'Pol brushes it off as merely an experiment exploring human sexuality for purely practical purposes. So much for Vulcans not lying, although maybe that doesn't apply to lying to yourself. As for the B-plot, Archer calls in Reed and Hayes to express his outrage over beating the shit out of each other. And after that, outrage at the now conscious alien that he knows was lying about being here against his will.
When the Xindi destroy Earth, my people will prevail.
So we know now a bit more about who's behind this plot. They are the ones manipulating time and likely responsible for building the spheres. Dicks. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Reed for being shockingly territorial to the point of near madness. Hayes wasn't exactly blameless, but I started getting the feeling he was getting passive-aggressive because of Reed's clear obstinance. Final score for Harbinger is 6 out of 10, certainly above average by Enterprise standards, but the fact that none of the 3 plots was strong enough to be predominant shows the weakness of its approach. It's like they had 3 separate things that all needed to happen at this point in the show, and so they shoved them all into the same episode. In which case, I do applaud them for doing it as well as they did, but nevertheless, this is an uphill climb. Tomorrow, the trip to Azadi Prime is interrupted in Hatchery.